Tuesday, July 27th, and we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will read it tonight. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Just a brief announcement. Select Board member Scott Hazelton is participating remotely. And as folks can see, Select Board member Tom Clay is not here tonight. But because Scott Hazelton is participating remotely, all our votes will need to be done by roll call. So, starting with open forum. We would like tonight to recognize Lori Lassard for her more than 22 years of service as the administrative assistant in the health department. She retired effective as of July 23rd. We would like to thank her for all of her years of service to the health department, particularly over the last year. During COVID, she, like all of our employees, rose to the occasion and went above and beyond the call of duty in helping our town and helping our residents deal with COVID. We wish her well in her retirement and her future endeavors, and as I said, we thank her for all of her years of service here and to the health department in Westford. That is all I have. Anita, I know you said you have something for open forum.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know that the Westford Cultural Council's annual community input survey is now open. It's open until August 22nd, and it helps the Cultural Council identify their annual grant cycle priorities. So if you just go to our town website, go to the Cultural Council page, and you'll find a link to the survey there.
Thanks. Anybody from the audience have anything for open forum? Okay, see.
Have anything?
Scott, do you have anything?
Nope, no, that's fine.
Okay. All right. Moving on to our consent agenda. We have a request to approve a banner for the farmers market. The applicant is the Road and Bush Community Center. The location is J.B. Fletcher Library, and the dates are Wednesday from July 28th to Saturday, August 7th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Scott?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So we're at our 7:40 p.m. item. Note that I'm already 5 minutes ahead of time. And this is a joint meeting with the Parks, Grounds, and Recreation Commission to review the Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trails outdoor art display, hear any abutter concerns, and discuss a process for abutters to be notified of future changes related to the trail. As I hope folks remember, as part of our meetings earlier this summer when we were discussing the outdoor art display, one of the future events that the board and the Rec Commission pledged to do was to check in with folks in the summer to hear any concerns that may have arisen with respect to the Outdoor Doors exhibit, and also to discuss a way that we may notify and I guess communicate with the abutters in connection with changes, events, maintenance, things that happen on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail that might affect the neighborhood. So in fulfilling that commitment to all of you, we are here tonight to continue that discussion and to follow up on the discussions back in, I believe, the end of May, early June. So,
Madam Chairperson?
Yes.
I think I have to officially reconvene since we adjourned at the other building.
Okay, so go right ahead.
We are reconvening the Parks and Rec Commission at 7:34.
Okay.
Just want to make sure I got that in there.
All right, good enough. So I think where I'd like to start, it's my understanding that the doors didn't go up quite as quickly as we initially expected. There were some delays for whatever reason, but I do understand that they're all up now. So I guess, Emily, as the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail representative, if you could give us an update as to where things stand and what the trail has been doing. That would
Can
be
I
great.
stand over here, because I would rather talk to the audience as well?
Of course.
Emily Teller, 9 Texas Road. I'm the secretary and Westford board member of the Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, and Chris Barrett is here, who is the other Friend board member from Westford. And thank you all very much for taking the time to come. Thank you for Rec Commission for having being here, and you all too for making this meeting happen. I just wanted to say, first of all, to give a little background, because I think there are a couple people who may not know the story of this, and I'll be brief, but I'm grateful you had 5 extra minutes, but I won't take them. This was originally seen by somebody on the High Line, so a similar public art display, and the Umbrella Arts Center in Concord approached the Friends and asked if we would help sponsor something like that in West Concord on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail when it opened a couple years ago, and we said we would be glad to. They proposed 12 doors, which they had, and the Friends gave $3,000 toward that, and it was local artists, and that was in the summer of 2020. And then they asked if anybody else on the Friends board wanted this in their town, and I jumped right on it because I thought it would be perfect for Westford. So we funded $1,800 for 7 doors. There are 5 in Westford and 2 in Carlisle. March 25th, the Friends board finally voted the funds for this. So I asked, Chris and I decided to go to Parks and Rec and let them know that it was happening on April 12th. And they supported it unanimously. And then the 13th was the night that the select board was to be informed about this. And there were a lot of abutters there. And that's when the select board said that they'd like to have an abutter meeting. So the abutter notices went out April 26th. Parks and Rec had an abutter meeting. And April 27th, the select board approved the project 5-0. And then to review midway through and hear about our concerns about the project and also discuss the process for communication going forward. We had hoped the doors to be up in April, but all that delayed it a little bit. They are planned to be up through till November, probably November 1st. And the artists were paid to rejuvenate their doors for the most part. These are the ones that had been in Concord, so they were recycled and reused. And we did commission 1 new door. And on June 1st, the doors began to be installed. The first 2 were in Carlisle, and this door that we're displaying here is in Carlisle. And the next one that you'll see is also in Carlisle. We have a Carlisle board member who is very committed to his 800 feet of the rail trail, and he actually requested these 2 doors. And Westford also has 800 feet on the other side of 225. But this is a door that is close to the crossing of the rail trail at 225. This is Trillium. And the other door, there's another door I'll show you later that's paired with that one. This one is closer up to the Greenwood Road crossing of the rail trail, and this is supposed to be Autumn. And the next one is the other side of that door, which is Spring. And the door that's next to that one this is the back of that door. I just wanted to say that it's not just the front, but the artists also do the backs. And the front of that door is this one, also called Spring. And then I'd like to read you some comments. I think that's the next section, right? I'd like to read you some comments. If you could go all the way up to the top, Dan. One of the artists had a door in Concord that was very successful, and she has redone it for Westford, and it's up on the top left of this page. And at the bottom left, you can see that orange box that says journal on it, and inside of that is the plastic container, and inside there is a small notebook that she's encouraged people to write on. And I just wanted to read you some of those comments. Sorry, I'm not as organized as I should be. A lot to remember here. The notebook says, leave a message or questions, qualms, queries, doubts, misapprehensions, art and nature. And there's colored pencils and pen and pencil sharpener. So here are some of the comments that are in that door. Also, you can see there's a sign there above the owl that says, "Put a stone in your favorite dinner." So it's getting people to really interact with the door, and it's really popular with children. And you can also put your face next to the owl. There's a big hole, and take a selfie with the owl. So I'll read you some, if you could just do the next one so people, and this is the 7th door that just was put in Thursday. The title of the door is Meet Our Neighbors, and it's all animals that we see in Westford, and the painting is on one side, and that list with the profile and all the animals is on the other. So those two right there are the first two that I'll read to you. I've been depressed lately. This is my first bike ride in over a month and 3 weeks into starting new meals. Today is one of a few of late days when I'm feeling rather hopeful. Your art is a large part of that feeling. Thank you. And then the next one on the right says, and you don't have to read all these, I just wanted you to see that they're different handwritings and stuff. Hi, my friends forced me to go on a bike ride and I don't exercise, so I'm dying. This is a cool art piece and made the adventure worth it. And then further down, you could just scroll. On a bike ride with my daughter, Zoe, 6, stopped for a snack and to check out this amazing piece of artwork. What a great opportunity to teach her about giving back and brightening people's days. Thank you, Aria. I love what you made and created. Thanks for making it, Zoe, 10. And she spelled created C-R-E-E-D-D-I-D-E. And then there are 4 more that I'll read, or 5. What a surprise. I came upon my walk this morning. Thank you, it brightened my day, Kim. Love your bright colors and fun inspiration outdoors. I enjoyed your creative contribution to the journey of my day. Thank you. Enjoy. Peace. Really awesome. Thank you for adding to the beauty of this trail. Alan and Ethan from Billerica. Thank you for putting a huge smile on my face. I love these doors. Beautiful. Cool art. Thanks for sharing. Hope you are doing well. Brian M. Tewksbury. So there are 25 that were in there in June and July. And I guess I just want them to speak for themselves because it's been a wonderful experience working with so many people in town to get these up, and the abutters. I'm hoping that it's been a joy for them. There was damage that was done to the door up at the top with the animals on it. I called the police. I was notified about it, and I met with the police on Saturday, and this was installed, not this one, the next one, was installed Thursday at 5:30, and the damage was done in the first 48 hours that it was up. Apparently somebody hit it with a baseball bat and crushed the side with the silhouettes enough to bash through and crack the side with the painting. So we are planning to repair it. It's all good, and I'm happy to answer questions at any time during this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. If you want to speak, you need to come to the microphone and identify yourself.
All right, I only want a quick question.
That's fine. Not a problem, but we have people watching at home and they can't hear you unless you come to the microphone.
I don't think I want to be on the TV. Diane Sked, 2 Landmark Road, Westford. I just wonder, the 2 that were damaged, where were they?
It's just one that was damaged,
sorry,
either
one
side,
then.
and it's right near Greenwood Road. It's as far up the trail as
The
you can
Greenwood.
go
Yeah.
before Chelmsford.
I know where it is, yeah. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Shoshana Perry. I'm in a butter. I'm at the stretch that didn't get any of the doors. And I came and spoke in the meeting in, was it June? April. Only because my neighbor, Michelle, who's over there, rallied the forces of our neighbors. I didn't really know about the meeting, so I appreciate getting something in the mail this time. But I just think this is like such a wonderful part of living in Westford. The bike trail is an amazing community gathering place. We don't have really near where I live a town common, a town square, and it brings me incredible joy to look out and see people riding the bikes from all the different towns and from Westford. I feel like it increases the value of my home at some point, years down the line, when I might sell the house, to be able to say that we're on the bike trail. It makes me very, very sad that in the stretch that we're on, there are no doors. I feel that I go down I walk up to to 27 and there's no doors. And yet if I turn right and go towards Carlisle, I get to enjoy 2 of the doors. And it says something, I think, about the town that we have kind of given into a sense of NIMBYism, that we are preventing a certain area of this rail trail from having beautiful art that enriches our lives, that raises our spirits and souls. And I did ask at that last meeting that you might consider moving a couple of the doors down. If someone has mobility issues, they can't get up. Sometimes that one stretch is all you can go. I have an elderly dog, and when I walk, I only get as far as 27. So I would never get to see any of these doors because of, a sense of exclusivity. And I would encourage you, I think I did ask, that you might consider moving some of the doors down, maybe by the kiosk, right at that cross intersection. So thank you for considering that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Hi, my name is Melissa Kragetsky. I live at 27 Acton Road, which is also the stretch that doesn't have them. I would say that I did join that meeting. There was a couple of concerns I had with tone of the meeting. I think the meeting got a little hot, which I don't think is necessary for art. I'm an artist myself, and if you've driven 27, you may have seen our big displays for Valentine's Day and such, where that loud house. So we are very welcoming to art in and around our surrounding areas. I will say that my neighbors and I are concerned with the trail in and of itself. I have, as many of you know if you've seen my house, I have most of the property from the light to my gray house. And we are continuously maintaining that because of the bike trail, trash and whatnot. So it becomes a little bit of a struggle. We no longer actually clear a path for ourselves to walk to the bike path because of the amount of traffic that we get from the bike path cutting through our property to get to 27. And I have a couple of young kids, and that's, obviously a concern. Our neighbor has the same problem. They actually have widened their path. They're afraid of ticks. And they have, the Park and Rec just recently did tree maintenance, they had a steady stream of people cutting through their property with their baby running around and such like that. So for us, our concern was not having the art on our stretch. We think that's a wonderful opportunity. However, we are very close. Our houses are very close to the trail, and we can hear every conversation, and we do look out. We talk to a lot of our neighbors that travel the trail. However, it was about proximity and about how much gathering and privacy we would kind of lose in that time. Lots of people talk to my kids from the bike path because they're loud and exciting and whatever. But it's a little concerning. And so most everybody that travels it is just having a nice bike ride. I think there is an opportunity to possibly place it where there can be a natural gathering spot, especially since on our stretch we are a little tight. I think the entrance was perfect. Both entrances was a great opportunity to add some doors. I think it would be lovely in our area, and since I'm the closest almost, I think it would be great to have that down where 225 enters. That long fence makes it a little difficult because there's such a narrow spot between the trail and the fencing, if you know where I'm.
By the kiosk?
No, so what I'm saying is that is a natural spot because we have that long fence on either side, and I think it's 10 inches or maybe 2 feet.
2
maybe
feet on shoulder.
Either side, yeah. So it's a very narrow stretch. And I just wanted to say that I know that the meeting seemed like our end didn't want the doors. I think we were only concerned about placement and proximity to where people would gather. That's what was my only concern. We're right at that fence line. Everybody loves to gather there. They climb on that fence. So already a little you know, and to add doors to that where the markers were there initially and then they got moved down, you know, it was a little bit of a concern about that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Other comments from the audience? Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Hale Powell, and I'm at...
You can, it'll pick you up, you don't have to, you don't have to bend, okay?
Okay, thanks. I'm Hale Powell, and I also live in Butter at 20 Acton Road. I'm a real enthusiast of the trail, and I'm enthusiast of art as well. I love going to the Cordova Museum. They have public art there, and it's a really inspiring experience to see public art, whether it's a statue in the park or whether it's unexpected art along the bike trail. I am on the bike trail very, very often, and to me it's very remarkable how little litter or how little problem there is with the bike trail. It's surprising. We live right on 27, there really is much more litter and problems on 27 than there is on the bike trail. So there was one other thing. Oh, the other thing I just wanted to remark, oh, here I am leaning again. One thing I wanted to remark about the bike trail in recent months has become more of a family environment. It used to be just bike riders, but now more and more you see entire families with children, you know, small children learning how to ride their bikes or even in bike trailers. So I think a little bit of an artistic experience is great for families. And I really encourage the installation of the doors in our section of the bike trail. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Brian Scad, 2 Landmark Road. So let me just say a couple of things about history here. We did have a meeting to discuss where the doors were going to be situated. As a result of that meeting, you guys agreed that the doors would be moved so they would not be adjacent and right behind houses that were adjacent and abutted the bike trail. And that's fine. We went to look at a couple of those doors just at the junction where they cross 225. I'm not particularly artistic, so I'm not going to give you artistic commentary on them. They look fine. They are where they said they would be. So I have no objection. I would like to just check, because somebody here said we'd like to propose moving those doors to another location. Is that on the agenda tonight?
We're hearing it. I don't know that, I think, it's been brought up. The board will, we'll talk about it. What the board will decide, I don't know.
Let me know if that, because it wasn't on the agenda.
I understand.
If it comes on the agenda, there are other people who are adjacent to the bike trail who would have heavy opinion about that.
Understood.
So don't sneak something in again. It's happened before, right?
We won't sneak anything in, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Okay, I don't see any comments from the board. Questions? No. Okay. The other thing, the other part of this, and I think just to address the comments that a few of the abutters brought up about moving doors at this point in time, I do think that Mr. Raises a good point, is that if we are going to consider that, we have to give notice of that to the entire neighborhood, as there may be other people who would like to comment on that, and we did not give that notice tonight. So if that's something that the board wants to consider, we can certainly put it on our next meeting and our next agenda for consideration, but I do agree we should not consider it tonight without having given the neighborhood notice. So we can talk about that. But the other thing that was on the agenda tonight was to talk about notification of the neighborhood when there are issues concerning the rail trail, and how to best do that. My understanding is that when we send out abutter letters, there are about 90 abutters who get notice. How many, I'm sorry? 143. 143 abutters that get notice. And, you know, we're certainly as a town committed to notifying everybody and sending out abutter notices. But one of the things that the board has done in the past is to, when there's that amount of people, is to ask if there is several people who might volunteer to be representatives who we could send via email out notification of something, so that then in the neighborhood, if you have an email chain, emails can go out to the to folks in the neighborhood, and even, you know, other people who may be concerned and interested. So I suspect that nobody's thought about this yet, but if there are folks out there who would be interested in volunteering to be a representative for the neighborhood and perhaps setting up an email chain, we'd love to hear from you. Sure, Emily.
I think other boards also send out abutter notices in a 300-foot radius, and I think that might be appropriate. I don't know the future. I can't imagine there would ever be anything done the whole length of the rail trail. I know there's some route incursion that happened in Chelmsford that's in Westford, and so there are bumpy, cracked places, and that may be repaired at some point if we can get a grant like they did. But I can't imagine there's a time when everybody on the rail trail would need to know. I don't want to limit that, but I think it would be spot things at this point. So maybe that 300-foot radius, or even a 600-foot radius.
I guess, so let me ask you a question. When we sent out notification for this meeting, did it go to everybody along the rail trail, or did it just go to Westford residents?
Oh, it just went to the Westford, but that's still 143.
Okay, well, that's what I thought.
It's
based
just
on your
Westford.
comment just now, I didn't understand whether.
No, I'm thinking of the Westford section of.
Okay, I mean, that's all I'm concerned about is Westford section and notifying Westford residents and making sure that Westford residents are notified if something is going on or occurring on the rail trail. Okay. John, I'm sorry, hang on 1 minute. John, will you?
I was just kind of thinking, 143.
Were you thinking out loud, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I think actually Ms. Sked was there, and then you.
Diane Sked, 2 Landmark Road. I think I back up to you along the rail trail. Congratulations to the lady who was, I don't know, was she here? The lady who had 30 years working for the town. That was very nice.
No, she's not here tonight.
She's not here, okay. An abutter, what do you consider an abutter? Is an abutter your land that goes up to the rail trail?
So what we use, yes, abutters are those folks who literally abut the rail trail.
Right.
I believe that the planning board, when they are sending abutter notices, they send notices to folks within 300 yards of whatever the location is. So in this case, 300 yards, 300 feet, I'm sorry, 300 feet, not yards, feet, sorry about that, to the rail trail. So.
I'm sorry, to the rail trail?
Yes, within 300 feet of the rail trail.
So that's people who don't necessarily abut the rail trail?
That's correct.
Well, that's extremely unfair, because the people who worry about these doors are because they back up to actually our houses. Some of the people here tonight, if they're abutters, but they're down streets and off, I don't consider that an abutter. I mean, we have struggled we've lived in our house, believe it or not, for 33 years. And I am a citizen. Emily, you questioned that one time before. But here's the thing. We lost our privacy completely. The only time we have privacy is when, this time of the year, when everything has grown in. Now, this lady lives closer than I do to that. She has young children. I know that there have been people on that rail trail whose children have been spoken to. I would not be happy if somebody was talking to my kids. Sometimes you just have to go into the house to get something, tissue or something. I would be very upset if there was somebody talking to my kids. It's not easy. I mean, people who have dogs have had to corral them. It's a great thing, the bike trail, and we don't have an objection to it. What we do object is to people who have tried over the years to make it a problem for us. We have come across that. And what did someone here call it? Was it you? Not in my backyard? Nippets or something?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
You need to,
Sorry, I just
Talk to
didn't
the
quite
board, okay.
catch what the thing was. When, not in my backyard, we have not complained about that. What we've complained over the years is where they were going to put parking. Now it's gatherings outside some of our houses. That's not, it's really not fair.
So I hear you, but all we're talking about tonight now is how to notify
Well, let me
folks.
get to that. I
Well,
started with
Excuse
that.
me.
Yeah.
All we're talking about tonight is how we notify folks about what's happening on the rail trail.
That's correct.
So if you would direct your comments to
I
that
did
issue.
at the beginning.
Right,
I
and
said,
then you got
how
a little
do you-
sidetracked, so I'm bringing you back to where you were.
That, but you have to understand that if somebody lives 2 streets away, they've not got the problems that we've got on the bike trail.
I understand that.
So-
I understand that that's your feeling and your opinion.
Well, it's a fact. It's not my
They may
my
still
opinion.
be interested in what's going on in the rail trail, though.
I'm sorry, what?
They may still be interested in what's happening at the rail trail.
True, that's okay, but they're not the people who are directly impacted by some of the things that go on. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
All right?
Actually, first her and then Shoshana.
So,
You need to tell us, I know you did already,
I'm
but
so
you
sorry.
need to tell us
Melissa
again.
Krajewski, I live at 27 Acton Road. And everybody's had a bunch of experiences, so there are heightened emotions to the people who, at least my close neighbors, who are right on the bike trail. I would be happy to work, especially with you and you, to do an email list to notify abutters. I'd be happy to do that. I feel like I'm pretty measured when it comes to, getting and though I have my own personal experiences, I would not let that be reflected in an email or whatever, especially with a good partnership. I think whenever, for my neighbor and for myself, I think whenever there's an opportunity to talk about our experience, we tend to do it because it's right there in our tip of our tongue. So please don't let that detract from the fact that we are excited, well, I at least, and my family, are excited about seeing art. I'm dismayed that some was ruined. I know that that's happened to some people's fences and whatnot, so it's not surprising to us, but that's disappointing, especially in such a short span of time. And I just wanted to volunteer to be part of that email chain.
Thank you very much.
Whatever we need to kind of build, especially build better bridges with abutters and the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. Even though we may disagree, I'd rather have a nicer way of communicating with each other.
That makes sense, so thank
All
you.
right, thank you.
Just make sure you connect with our town manager so she gets your
Oh, sure.
information. So
I do.
she can follow up with you, okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I just want to speak, Shoshana Perry, 20 Acton Road. I want to speak to the concern about what an abutter is. That, the comment was very concerning to me. I am an abutter. I may not be on the bike trail, but, we are all members of the Westford community, and that bike trail is a public resource to everybody in this town.
not just the people whose houses are on the bike trail, literally. And when people bought houses on that bike trail was there and had, I moved in 22, some of the people.
Folks, come on.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Excuse me. I moved in 22 years ago with the promise.
Go ahead.
I didn't really like having someone point their finger at me the way that happened before, by the way. But when I moved in 22 years ago, I was told there would be a bike trail. I chose to live at the bike trail because of the bike trail. And I would hate to think that people who literally are just there, like on the bike trail, would be considered abutters. There must be a technical definition of this, of what an abutter is. We all live in this town and benefit from that bike trail, whether our property is on it or not. And I just wanted to not make narrower this definition of what an abutter is.
Under the planning board rules and regulations define a butter as any household or home that is within 300 feet of a location.
I just heard that being raised, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't limited.
That is the planning board rules and regulation definition. Yes, ma'am.
Cheryl Major, 67 Acton Road. I just want to go on the record as saying I feel very strongly that the letters should continue to go out. I feel that the risk of missing an email, the risk of somebody not being there, being on vacation, or just missing the email that should go out to all the other email recipients is going to put us right back where we are now, with people saying, how did this happen? I didn't know this was going to happen. It puts us right back to April, it puts us right back to 2010, 2001, and we're trying to solve that. So I feel very strongly the letters should continue to go out to abutters from the town.
The letters will go out. I also think that having an email chain is sort of an additional way that we can communicate with people. If somebody is, away on vacation but is checking email, they might get an email and they don't get the letter. They can, sort of know what's going on. So I think it's just a way to cover all bases, both snail mail as well as email.
So just to be clear, we're talking belt and suspenders?
Yeah.
It's not one or the other, it's both?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I did not understand that.
Okay, I have a little concern with the email because people move and sell houses and change email, and I don't know how we're going to be able to manage an email list and keep it current. So personally, I would prefer to just send letters to abutters, and that way we're covered. I'm concerned about having an email list and not having it accurate, so.
Okay.
We get so many emails. I mean, the odds of missing it, I think, are extremely high, too. So, thank you.
All right. Mr. Sked, and then I'm going to go to the board, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Okay.
And you don't need to tell us who you are again, sir.
It's going to be Brian Sked, 2 Lambert Road, just to keep you happy. There are 2 classes of people who are adjacent to the rail trail. There just is. In the last iteration of this, where we saw, 100 in agreement with the art form from Shelley Road, there was a lot of poetic license about what was an abutter to the rail trail. Some were 2 streets away, 5 lots away. I think there is only 1 house on Shelley Lane that actually touches the rail trail, as I can recall, and the person who was in that house had moved. So the person who wrote that letter was not even there. So, given all of that, there's a certain element of distrust about what goes on, and I think if we go deny that and go into denial of it, then we're not going to get a solution. There are 2 issues with the rail trail and people who live directly against it. It's the what and it's the where. When the rail trail, and you are wrong about, we all signed up when we bought the houses to the rail trail.
I'm going to say the same thing that I've said to everybody. We're talking about notification, so keep your comments directed to notification of abutters.
Well,
I understand, and I think everybody knows, not everybody moved in when, let me rephrase that.
So you want to just leave a comment that's inaccurate hanging out there, is that okay?
I'm about to...
It's not okay.
Excuse me. I'm about to correct what was said to say that there are people who lived in their houses before the rail trail was put in, okay?
Right. So I think you as a board should, or you as a town, should have an opinion about, before we all go into groups and touchy-feelies about who's going to participate in discussions, is what is acceptable to be on the rail trail and where is it acceptable to be. Those are two major issues, and until they're resolved, or until somebody has an opinion or has a proposal that's acceptable, you're going to get these arguments. You just are. Because the rail trail was meant to be a certain thing, and it's being morphed into being other things. It was never meant to be an entertainment centre. I could get 100 letters that said I'd love an ice cream stand.
All right.
You get my point.
Okay, I get your point, thank you.
In terms of process, you should send out, I'd be happy to participate in any discussion with the Friends of the Rail Trail, and this is Emily's worst nightmare, in that discussion.
You know, that was not called for. I'm sorry, we're trying to have a rational and reasonable discussion here without, you know, attacks on people and their personality. Okay, so that really wasn't called for.
Okay. You want to?
May I speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
And you're the last person, and then we're
Thank
going to
you.
go to the
Thanks for
board.
that. Sarah Chmielewski, 17 Shelley Lane. And so I did ask all of my neighbors for their opinions, and the reason I did that is because at 17 Shelley Lane, where I do abut, and there is another Shelley Lane person who abuts the rail trail, but where I abut personally, we put in a wooded access trail to get to the rail trail. So that does affect all of my neighbors then, and that's why I asked them if they had any concerns as well, because there is an access trail to the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail to Shelley Lane. So I think their opinions are valid as well, and I appreciate you following, you know, the property, what was it, the property board? Planning board, sorry. 300 feet, I think it's very valuable when we get letters in the mail. I also appreciate emails. But I just wanted to point out about the Shelley Lane just for some clarification about why I thought that those opinions, also Westford residents and people who use the rail trail might be applicable to the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anita?
Yeah, you know, so maybe going back to kind of the outdoor art display agenda item about just whether or not there are any concerns. I'm glad to know that there's been a lot of great positive feedback from people who use the rail trail. Good to know that they're placed where they're supposed to be placed. It does sound like and it sounds like we have a process in place notifying based on planning board standards or guidelines. But obviously there are some abutter concerns around trespassing, and I don't know if that's something that we might be able to work with the Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, if they have ways that they already address this, maybe other areas of the rail trail outside of Westford that we can get ideas from. But I feel like, you know, that's where a conversation place should start, because that seems to be where there's a rub. That's my.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I mean, do we need to notify, is every project on the rail trail, do we need to notify everybody that's a butter to the rail trail, or to the abutter to the actual event that's going on, for example, repair work, things like that?
So
Can the notification be tailored, or would you rather just do it to
I think
143 of them every time?
if someone doesn't get notified, I think that's a problem. And we don't notify them of maintenance. I think in this case, this was a meeting to follow up on art and communication, but I can't overcomplicate this because we have a lot to do. So rail trail, Westford, 300 feet, that's who gets it.
Yeah.
And this has only happened a couple times in 13 years, so I don't think this happens.
So are we
real
over
often.
the argument of having a rail trail at all?
Yes.
And locations of the art,
Yeah.
we're over that?
Yeah. That we
Question
did
is
that.
Going
we did that
forward.
before you got on the board, John.
Thank goodness. Anything going forward, that we'll have this communication
Right.
and go from there.
If there's, to me, it's not maintenance. I don't think they care about maintenance. It's changes, adding something.
I did have one concern
Although
over,
I would think, you know, in terms of maintenance, Jody, I mean, if for some reason, you know, there was a major portion in Westford of the rail trail that got washed out and there was going to be significant maintenance and, you know, drilling and jackhammering and that kind of thing, I would think we would let the residents know so that they would be aware of
Yeah.
that. But you're right, if it's just sort of patching, you know, cracks
Yeah.
kind of thing, I think
I
that's.
mean, we maintain it all the
Yeah.
time, and we've
Yeah.
never had a complaint
Yeah.
I
about
just had one
that.
other thing. There was a comment made that we had two classes of people here. I mean, we're all Westfordians, we're all in Westford. We have people with different concerns. And I just don't think continuing that discussion in that vein would be beneficial.
Agreed. So I think that the consensus, at least of the board tonight, is that we will continue to send letters to all abutters when there is something that is going to happen on the trail. Abutters is defined as anybody within 300 feet of the rail trail as our planning board guidelines set forth. And if there are, I needed to go, your specific complaints about trespasses or trespassing, then we clearly, the board, and more importantly, I think the police want to hear about any trespassing that's going on people's property, because, you know, that certainly is a concern for everybody. All right. Yep.
Sorry. Just one brief clarification. Chris Barrett, 13 Votes Hill Road, member of the Park and Rec Commission. On the maintenance subject, we are starting up a regular process of doing tree pruning. This was the first year that we did that, and we do expect to send out notifications in that situation.
Yes.
We also have, we're hoping in the spring, the repair of the trail over at Greenwood Lane, so that will be another area that we anticipate sending out abutter notifications for that. So those will be two types of maintenance that we think would rise to the occasion versus somebody coming along and just doing the regular leaf blowing, or we trim the sides of the trail, that sort of thing. So that's where I think the Park and Rec department will probably follow in terms of, you know, how we decide to do those. And then if there are special projects, we'll probably bring that forward to this board for their information, and then we'll decide, you know, does that rise to the occasion of needing that. And I would think, based off the conversations we've heard so far, that most likely they would. So, okay, thank you.
Can I just ask for clarification on what Chris said? So he's...
You need to go to the microphone, Emily.
Sorry, thank you. Sorry. Emily Cheller, 9 Texas Road. I would like to have Chris clarify whether Parks and Rec will send out notification of that tree clearing to all 143, or just the people at whose property that's going to happen. Sorry. That was confusing.
It's a great question. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Lauren Coffey, 30 Monadnock Drive, Chair of Parks and Rec Commission. We heard loud and clear from the abutters at the Parks and Rec meeting that notification was very important, and our commitment is to make sure that we have the widest possible communication moving forward.
All right. Okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate it. And,
Okay.
Can we adjourn our portion?
I was just...
Yeah. Yes, you can, certainly, you can adjourn your...
Rec, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
So it's the rail
Jump in.
fence that they have.
Hey, Michelle and folks. Michelle, folks, we still have business to do, so can you take your discussion outside, please?
Thank you.
All right, we are at...
Yes, I know.
We're at old and new business, and the first thing on our old and new business agenda is the discussion of challenges related to holding hybrid public meetings.
Yes. Do you want me to talk about that? Okay, so,
Thank you.
so we did a survey, which I think we told you about, of all boards and board members about how they wanted to proceed, and only 20% of board members wanted to do in-person only. I think it was kind of 30% wanted to do virtual, 30% wanted to have hybrid, and I don't know what the extra 10. And so it is complicated. Patty, do you mind shutting that door? I'm sorry.
We want to take a recess.
You know, it is complicated, and we gave you a memo in your packet. Virtual are easy, in-person's easy, it's the hybrid that is complicated. And so we listed what some of the complications are. You know, we have to provide equipment. We did install a television here, as you see, to give us that equipment in here. but you have to share the documents with both the people at home and the people in the room. That's a little complicated. It's different than all virtual, where everybody sees the same documents. So that's one of the complications. The other part is we're supposed to allow virtual people to ask the same questions and have the same opportunities as people in the meeting. A little different than virtual meetings. The chair saw who wanted to ask whatever question, and the chair was able to address those in the manner the chair saw fit. The chair isn't going to run the in-person meeting and the virtual meeting at the same time. We think that's too complicated. So one of the questions is, the person who's assisting with the virtual, how are they telling the chair what questions are being asked? And as you know from our other meetings, some of those weren't even really relevant to what we were talking about. So that is a challenge, how the person running the virtual portion is communicating to the chair what's being asked, whose hands up, and that sort of thing, without disrupting the meeting that we have going on. The other thing is WCAT has to have access to both the in-person and the virtual part, and the part that we're showing on the screen here. One thing that we learned is if you're advertised as a hybrid and the technical virtual part goes down, we have to stop the meeting until we're able to get that part back up. So those are some of the complications. Another thing that everybody's got to hear. People got to hear at home, people got to hear in the meeting room, people got to hear on WCAT. So that's a challenge. The other part is during the pandemic, which is still going, many town employees just stepped up to the plate and ran all these meetings on their off hours, and that's been going on about an hour or a year and a half. And if this is a permanent solution, or even through April, we kind of have to figure that out, because they're being asked to work all day, and then they're being asked to host and run meetings at night. So there's some cost associated to that if we do have to hire somebody to help run these meetings. So my point is, this isn't easy. I mean, in-person's easy, virtual's easy. Having a combo isn't easy. We are invited to a meeting that Anita told us about, virtual meeting tomorrow, and we'll learn how some other towns are doing it. But it is complex, and so one of the things we've thought is perhaps it's used sparingly. If there is a meeting that's really important and you want a whole big crowd to be able to see it, then we logistics to get that done hybrid. But if it's just every single meeting, it seems like the complications might be too great for us to do that. So that's kind of in a nutshell, what we've discovered so far. John?
Well, that's a preference. You said only 20% wanted person to person.
20%, and not everybody answered our survey either, but 20% wanted to just do in-person meetings, that's it. The rest of them wanted either virtual or a hybrid.
Is there any data available that says that when we went with the virtual, that we had a significant increase in participation?
Yes.
How
we
significant?
Did. It was pretty significant. I mean, there were some meetings that had hundreds of people at them.
How about participation?
What do you mean?
Well, 100%, like we have 250 people at the annual town meeting, and only about, the discussion's usually about 60 to 70 people speak. And I know at the virtual meetings, we may have had 50 people on there, but maybe only 10 engaged. And I guess my thing is, if you're just going to watch it, you can watch it on CAT TV. I'm just occasions, and I really favor the in-person, because you actually get to talk to people. You don't get the same interaction you do in virtual, in my opinion. And I got another question. It says public body. Now, would all the committees that are appointed by the select committee, would they go along with the select committee's decision to be in person? Or does each committee, subcommittee, have the option on their own?
Well, there's a lot of committees that are appointed, not necessarily just by the select board, but a public body is an appointed committee, and they, well, you've never dictated what they need to do. So you can't dictate what another elected board wants to do. You can suggest, but if they are appointed by you or by me, then yes, you could dictate that. But we have elected bodies that don't have to listen to the select boards.
Well, I understand the
Yeah.
elected bodies.
Yeah.
Anita?
I'm just curious if you knew off the top of your head how many people did fill that out. It's 20% of what?
I think it was in the 90s. Do you remember the number? I think it was about, I'm going to say 97 people.
Okay.
Some served on several boards.
Okay. I was just curious.
But
what
it
our
wasn't,
number
we
is.
have about 80 committees, so it certainly wasn't everybody. But there are boards, like the energy, they want to meet virtual. They don't want to meet in person, and they like that, and they like to continue. And that's easy for us. It's the hybrid part that's difficult.
And so and as long as it sounds like there's flexibility, that it doesn't need to be one decision across all of the committees that
Right.
we appoint at least.
Yeah.
And so we can kind of pick and choose as long as we have like one room or two rooms that have the capability of the technology to do the screen sharing and the mic stuff and kind of use it, as needed, if that's an option.
We can try that. We actually were going to try it tonight, but our person is ill, so it wouldn't have worked tonight. And see, that's a problem too, is if we advertise this as hybrid and then we didn't have anybody to run it, the meeting's canceled. So it's more complicated than I'm even articulating, but we are happy to try it. And, perhaps, as I said, if there's, the DEI is coming and you want the whole town to be able to tune in, then perhaps those are important ways to do it. But to make every meeting virtual, have a staff person trying to advise the chair, control who's calling and who's not, that's going to be very complicated.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, so I know we switched over from GoToMeeting to Zoom, and a
Yes.
lot of people are familiar with it. There's a share screening option,
Yeah.
so if there's the person who's controlling the virtual side has the share screening thing, so everyone can see what the materials are, because we don't have those like printed out in front of us. They're virtual for us too, right? So being able to do that, I feel like it feels like it's doable, but I must be missing other pieces. One is staffing. I feel very guilty when I get on a meeting at 7 or 7:30 and I see Mike Wells, I see someone from his department running this meeting for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could do this. Like, you do not need to be putting in those times. So I definitely hear that, and I would want to figure out another way if we could find people. I feel like we might be able to find people who would be interested in that if we go in that direction, but
Well, so I don't have the funding for that right
Okay.
now, but we could fund in October, but again, if it's virtual, it's simple. You can run the meeting and everything's good. But if you're running an in-person meeting, are you also going to be looking at the screen, reading comments, if you're the chair, or is somebody else going to do that? And how are they going to communicate with the chair what's being said?
you could be intentional about that conversation and how you facilitate a meeting. So you could say like, oh, people in the room, make sure and then just, remember to check.
So I think, I guess, I know you said you're attending
There's a meeting tomorrow
virtual
for a
meeting
couple of
tomorrow.
towns that are doing this.
So I would be very interested to hear what other towns are doing, what their experience has been doing it, how they've been facilitating it between, virtual and in person. And then having you report, back to us as to what those experiences have been and how we might learn from them. I don't want to give up on this,
Right,
idea
right,
yet.
yeah.
And so I really do want to ask you and the staff to continue to explore it and bring back what you have found
Okay.
to us. And I certainly understand that, until we sort of work out some of these details, we can't offer it. But, am
Right.
hopeful that between now and perhaps, the fall, we may be able to figure this out and work this out.
Right.
So I guess I would ask you and the
Yep.
staff to continue to pursue it, to see how we might be able to make this work.
I know in Chelmsford they're doing it, and WCAT
or not WCAT, ChelmsfordCAT, whatever it's called, is controlling it, but I don't know all the particulars, so we will continue, because we think it's a good thing too, so.
Scott, do you have any comments?
Well, yeah, I had my hand raised. Did you see me?
I'm sorry, I missed it.
I mean, I think, I think the select board should be hybrid, honestly. I know it's complicated, but any citizen should be able to, approach us if they want to in person. That's great. If they've got small kids, if they can't drive at night, we now have an option for them to, appear virtually, with us. So I think we really need to figure a way to make this thing work. It's, it's good government, I think, given today's technology, to allow those who maybe couldn't before be part of the proceedings now.
Okay, so we'll continue to
think you
work
have your
on this.
marching orders.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. So our next item is an update on the cleanup actions and available funding for 12 North Main Street property, and to discuss the next steps, including possible disbandment of the 12 North Main Street Task Force. So I just want to take a few minutes just to recap where we are and how we got here tonight. First off, I really want to acknowledge the 12 North Main Street Committee and its members for all of the hard work that they have put in on this project over years. And the emphasis on the word is on the word years and not year or months. This has been a year's project. We tasked them with the mission of trying to repurpose or redevelop the 12 North Main Street property, and they have just worked so hard to try and do that. I believe there have been 3 RFPs that have gone out, either 2 or 3.
4.
Oh, is it 4 now? In trying to find somebody to redevelop or repurpose the property. The last one that went out, we did have a response, as folks know, and we had a response from the developer UDD. And based on their initial response to the RFP, we tasked town council and town staff to work with UDD's council to see if we could reach an agreeable purchase and sale agreement. Katie Klein, on behalf of the town, and UDD's council communicated, worked hard, and at the end of the day, we could not reach an agreement on a purchase and sales agreement that was acceptable to the town and acceptable to UDD. And part of the reason, actually not part, the reasons for this are multitude, but stem from the fact that in negotiating the purchase and sale agreement, UDD was looking for criteria that was not part of the RFP that we put out, and was looking to expand the RFP beyond the parameters of what we put out. And from a legal perspective, we just can't do that. And some of those parameters that they wanted to expand start with the fact that UDD has made it perfectly clear that they want the town to clean up the property. And the RFP that went out was equally clear that the property was to be sold as is, and that whomever the purchaser was going to take responsibility for cleaning up the property. And that was one of the reasons why the purchase price was set as low as it was because it was a contaminated property. Throughout the negotiations, UDD has indicated, has stated to the town, has stated to our council that they're not interested in proceeding with the next steps until the property is cleaned up, and they want the town to clean up the property. What UDD's latest draft of the PNS proposed was that within 180 days after the town completed remediation activities, they would then provide development plans for the commercial, residential, or mixed-use development of the property. That's just something that is so, that is so open-ended at this point. We couldn't even determine when such development would take place, since we don't know when we're going to be able to remediate the property, and we don't know when we're going to have funds to remediate the property, and so it left us feeling very insecure and unsure of the future development of this property. The other thing from the board's, from our perspective and from a town's perspective, is that if we, as a town, clean up the property then becomes worth more than the $5,000 that UDD offered to purchase the property. And at that point, we as a town would be selling property that probably increased significantly in value after having been cleaned up, and giving it to someone who only paid $5,000. And for the board, that did not seem to be acting in the best interests of the town, of the entire town. We were also concerned that because we were offering in the RFP the property at $5,000 in an as-is condition, if we ultimately cleaned it up and still sold it to UDD for $5,000, we could be open to a bid challenge from other folks who may have bid on the property had they known that the town was going to clean it up. A couple of other considerations was that UDD's latest draft of the P&S stated in it that we as a town acknowledge that we contaminated their parcel of land, and they own the adjacent parcel to 12 North Main Street. They own 10 North Main Street, and that the town contaminated their property as a result of runoff from our property to their property. They also wanted to remove the public access requirement to Stony Brook contiguous land that our RFP required, and they were asking for a public easement over that property that would allow public usage only during set times, and they wanted the town to insure that easement against any damage or liability. They were also seeking water rights to Stony Brook, which were not offered in the RFP. And then they asked for a certificate of compliance or completion that we had, that the town had achieved regulatory closure, and again, that wasn't part of the RFP. So for all of those reasons, we determined that we could not move forward with the RFP, with the purchase and sale agreement with UDD, and notified UDD 2 weeks ago that we would not be going forward with the purchase and sales agreement at that time. I know that it's disappointing for everybody. I know that it's particularly disappointing for the 12 North Main Street Committee that has worked so hard on this. But it is at least the board's decision that at this point in time, it is not in the best interests of the town to move forward with this purchase and sale agreement, and that what we need to do now is to focus on remediating the property and seeing if we can start cleanup of the property. As folks may know, CPC funds were allocated to this property for historical preservation and activities geared towards historical preservation. We used a portion of those funds to hire a licensed site professional, an LSP, to do an analysis of the site. We also used some of those funds to shore up the properties and to do a little bit of cleanup of the property. So we have, and we did contract with an LSP who has done an assessment and an evaluation, and based on his evaluation and assessment, he was estimating that it would cost about $500,000 to remediate the property. Recently, the town, through Eric Heidemann, who's not here tonight, but who is our master grant writer, has applied for a grant through the One-Stop Growth Program out of the Department of Economic and Housing Development. We will not know or hear about that grant until October. The maximum amount that we could get under the grant is $250,000. Obviously, that would at least be a nice start to any cleanup that we might have to do, but it won't be until the fall that we hear about that. So at this point, we, as a board, are focusing now on, taking care of the property that remains under the care and custody of the town. With all due thanks to the 12 North Main Street, we think that at this point in time, they have run the course with their mission. If at some point in time, things change, if we clean up the property and it then looks like we can, who knows, try and market it or sell it again, certainly look at, reconstituting the committee, but I think at this time we are talking about, disbanding them, although I do understand from the chair that there are some last minute items that they need to clean up. They need to clean up their minutes, and that they will post a meeting, I believe, in the first week in August, and that we keep them in place until after their meeting in August so that they can finish their work and do their minutes. So I know that was a little long-winded, but I wanted to bring everybody up to speed and also for anybody who is watching in the audience. So questions, comments from the board, from the audience? John?
Are we under any kind of time constraints for remediation as far as cleaning up the site?
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we aren't. The DEP is aware of what we've been doing, but I think since the board is advising us to start cleaning it up, we need to send them some formal notifications of our Phase 1 and Phase 2. As long as they see us making progress, they probably will not put us under an administrative consent order with dates. But they want to see the town is, going down the right path.
So we have time to look for additional grants, come up with maybe some kind of a concept of how we want to move forward.
Yes.
Part of it historical, part of it commercial, doing something similar to what we did with the town farm, that very capable group set that up.
I'm not sure that you can, if...
I know.
Well,
I'm just
think
looking at options.
So what I would say is the board, kind of gave us direction to clean up the property, get it cleaned up. So that's what we would focus on, and then once that's done, then you
we can
can
look at
decide
other
if you want to do another RFP or whatever. But that's going to take a few years, I would say. I mean, it's a big property, and it'll be back on your agenda for decisions, whether we are trying to save parts of the building or what parts,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are other decisions that we need to make.
Yeah.
Are there parts of the building that, we want to try and save, and how we do that at the same time as remediating the property so that we are able to save those parts of the building. So I think this will continue to be an agenda item. Anita?
I know I'm not going to sound as eloquent as Andrea, but I did want to say thank you to the 12th North Main Street Task Force, because I know they worked really hard for a really long time, were very passionate, pulled out all the stops, as well as the town side, and Kate Klein. And everyone just worked so hard to try and make something happen, and I don't feel bad really about where we are, because I think it's great to be able to know that we'll be able to kind of figure out how to make this town land more useful instead of kind of having it be an eyesore, just really being able to take care of our own property. So I just wanted to say thank you, because I know there was a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Ellen?
I agree with that.
Ellen, you...
Ellen Hardy, 39 Main Street. It strikes me as awkward for the Selectmen Board, Emily Teller's going to kill me if I don't say that right, to disband a committee that's worked so hard when none of them is here to say that's what we want. I know you've spoken to the chair, but I wonder if you could just not act on that until they have their meeting and perhaps have some letter from them that say, we understand why we shouldn't exist anymore. I don't think that should be totally unilateral from the top down, even if you've spoken to the
They were
chairman. So
invited,
just,
Ellen.
just a perception of how it looks from this side.
They were invited to the meeting tonight.
All right, it just feels funny.
Well, I thought that was the way we were going. We were going to wait until they had their meeting and closed up, and then if they wanted to have any further discussion, they could have it at our next meeting.
They were invited, I mean, they were told of this agenda item, and they were invited to it,
Okay.
so, you know, Tom, I'll turn to you. Tom Berry is here from the committee. If you have any thoughts, or, not to put you on the
I
spot.
have a lot of thoughts, but I think the entire committee, including the chair, knew that this was taking place tonight. I know I asked Jody, Tom Barry, by the way, 27 Stone Ridge Road, and I've been a member of that 12 North Main Street Committee for, I don't even know when it started, since the beginning.
September 2014.
There you go. So about 7 years. It's been a long journey. You're right, we've worked extremely hard, and whether it was 3 or 4, I think you're probably right, it was 4 RFPs. Just to put out one RFP took a lot of work, and to do it 4 times. I know I asked Jody at the last Finance Committee meeting if she had heard back from UDD, and I'd just be curious to hear what their response was, if any.
So I did clarify with the owner before the last select board meeting that they did not plan to proceed until the property was clean, just to be sure.
Okay.
I heard it from the owner, and he said, yes, they couldn't get financing, they didn't want to take a risk unless the property was clean. That was the bottom line, but I did send an email and a certified letter, and we did get a response from his attorney that I did not respond to.
Oh, okay.
The select board got it, and it was...
I assume not a good response?
It was upsetting. I guess I would classify it as that, so I chose not to respond. But I have not heard anything other than that.
I have not reached out. I said I was going to reach out to Blair Galinsky or Ed Lonigan, the attorney. As you know, Bill Nussbaum and I worked very closely with them. And as I mentioned last week, it was very disheartening to hear that, you know, all of a sudden some of these things are coming out that you know, they wanted the town to clean everything up. I can understand why they would like to have that happen. But it's just, for a long time, for many years, that wasn't the case with, you know, I think with all of the respondents to the RFPs, and I think we had, was it three respondents?
First time we went out, we didn't get any, and then
Yeah.
we went out, and I can't remember the order. Once Chris Franklin did respond, and once Chris Yule responded, but we could never get a purchase and sale agreed,
Sure.
you know. And but in this case, I think as Andrea summarized, their expectations
Sure.
were fairly significantly
Yeah.
beyond what the town had offered.
From my perspective, they were just a joy to work with. They were, I thought they were very forthcoming. I guess I misunderstood what they were looking for, and I'm sure Bill did. But I think it's time. It's time to move on to whatever the town is going to do with that. And,
Well, I think we're going to clean it up.
Yeah, and I would support
We've
any of
never
that.
been told to clean it up before, but now
Sure.
we're told to clean it up. So, and I will say, I did hear from Jane, and she just said she was going to try to post a meeting, I think it was August 5th.
Next Wednesday, I think we're meeting. Yeah.
Finish up the minutes, and that was all she said, so.
Yeah, we were just missing the minutes from the last meeting, so I forget who took them, but we're just going to clean those up, and then we'll be ready to shut down. Okay?
Thank you. So,
Is here?
Scott, yep.
Right. Okay, so when you're given a challenging lot, as Town Farm was, there's a lot of value in, talking, for RFPs, developers are really smart, experienced people who, are motivated to find workarounds, and so you want to go with RFPs and get that input, and then you learn, from those failures, what is a problem. The town from we learned we had to really broaden that footprint to make it viable. We did, and we had success. And I think we've learned with this process that we're not going to be able to find a developer without that land being cleaned. So I think there's a lot of value in what the task force has done. I think we appreciate that. And the fact that there's not a RFP response that we can agree to is no reflection. It's the fact that it's actually, I think, valuable to learn what we need to do next. And that obviously is clean it up. So I want to echo my appreciation and say that the work isn't in vain. It's the knowledge gained and the expensive price in terms of time on their part, but worthwhile knowledge to be gained for the town. So thank you.
What is the pleasure of the board that we disband the committee after their meeting on August 5th, or to vote that tonight, or to wait until our August 17th meeting and do it at that point in time?
I think do it at that point in time. I'd like to wait till the 17th.
That's fine.
I do think, if I could
Yeah, go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
Certainly, I think, knowing what we know now, that we need to clean it up, we are looking at a prolonged period of hiatus for that committee. On the other hand, I think it's their call, to say that their work is done, and I'd like to give the chance for them to at least say, how they prefer to move forward. And we can, I think react to that, but we should just ask them what their feelings are.
Okay, well, we can put it on the agenda for the 17th. August 17th, when our next meeting is. Okay? All right, moving on. We have a request to open the 2021 special town meeting warrant to be held on Monday, October 18th, 2021. Is there a motion to open the warrant?
Motion to open the warrant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Scott?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the warrant for our special town meeting is now open. Special town meeting is October 18th, 2021. Patty, do you have the schedule in front of you? Can you just remind folks when? All right. I knew you would, Patty. Can you just remind folks when warrant articles will be due?
Warrant articles for both town department heads as well as any citizens petitions would be Thursday, August 19th. I didn't put a time, so I would say that's 4 p.m. close for the day.
Okay. Good enough, thank you.
If anybody has any questions about citizens petition, I have someone call who's never done it, they can call.
Okay.
And I can send them a template and sort of walk them through it.
Great, appreciate it. Okay. Our next item is to consider forming a task force to study a proposal to change the date of our annual town meeting, discuss a charge, and makeup of membership. So, this is a continuing discussion from our last select board meeting, and thank you to town staff and to Ellen Hardy, who dug out past town reports and minutes and charges, etc. It was interesting to read what we did back then, or not what we did, but what other boards did back then. Continuing our discussion, I think we all agreed to talk about forming a task force to look at whether or not we should move or change the date of town meeting. But as I was thinking about that, over the last couple of days. I think maybe, and I'll just propose this, is that's a little bit too narrow a focus for this committee. I think what we're all really concerned, and what we heard from our town moderator 2 weeks ago, is what do we do, or what can we do that will encourage people to come to town meeting? What can we do to educate them, to make town meeting more accessible, you know, to sort of, to remove as many obstacles as we can for people so that they are able to attend town meetings. So in thinking about that, and one of those is looking at whether the date is convenient for people or not, and what would be a more convenient or less convenient date for folks. So I think that's one part of it, but I think maybe the charge is a little broader than that in terms of not just looking at the date, but looking at other factors that will encourage people and incentivize people to come to town meetings, so they look at this as like, wow, this is our town. I want to participate in the running and the government of our town and who and what we are. So that was my thoughts, and just sort of thinking about trying to craft a charge. Anita?
That makes sense to me, especially because I feel like that would have been secondary information that we were gathering, where when your primary question might be around the date, but really we're trying to get around how do you get there, right? How do we get people there? So kind of flipping that and having the primary be how do we get you there is that the date makes a lot of sense to me.
John?
Yeah, I think that adding that, you know, maybe even looking at something that would include remote participation. I know you don't want to hear that, but am I correct, doesn't Concord do that already?
I don't know the answer to that.
I'm not aware, huh? I'm not aware of...
Maybe we'll find out tomorrow at that thing about town meeting.
Yeah, wait a minute. Well, I'm not aware of any town meeting that can be handled remotely. I don't know if you have heard about that, but I'm not aware of a town meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, I may have been mistaken.
No,
But anyway, I agree with Brian.
everything but town meeting.
Because I know when on representative town meeting, we looked at a lot of that stuff. And, you know, why we even go with representative town meeting instead of annual town meeting. And I hope we put that to bed, because that seems like almost impossible thing to work anyway. But you could do that again if you wanted. If that's, look at options. I think looking to do more than just the data. I agree with that.
Scott, any thoughts or comments?
Well, I guess I would observe that we have had very, very large attendance at the town meeting. It's a matter of having a topic that generates debate, and we didn't have one of those in June this year, so we had a low turnout, and I'm fine with the expanded scope. I think it's certainly worth looking at, getting some people together that are smarter than I am to talk about it. But the reality is we've had 600 people or 1,000 people at town meetings. If it's been East Boston camps or something that's been, you know, a community-wide engagement. And so the real question, I think, is, you know, educating people that the townspeople that the budget is as exciting as East Boston camps. That's a hard thing to do, but that kind of mission, I guess, is to make town meeting important, I guess, in the minds of the voters.
Right.
Apart from an issue that's you know, of broad interest.
Right.
The option.
Okay. Any comments from the audience?
Angela Harkness, 15 Castle Road. So I'm not sure how you're going to decide how many people and who to appoint, but the only input I would like to give to that is that I think it's important to have, as always, different groups of people represented. And for this committee, maybe not just those people who are already familiar with town meeting, who already know how it works, who already attend all the time, but particularly soliciting some people who don't go to town meeting, but who are interested in explaining why and maybe changing things such that it will make people like them more interested in going. we always have a tendency to use the same people over and over again. Of course, those are the people that volunteer for things, but maybe soliciting some different people would make sense for a committee where we're trying to get new people to participate, so.
I think that makes sense, and I think reaching out to people who don't participate and asking them why they don't participate and what we might do or what they might like to see that would encourage them to participate, I think would be very informative and would get us to, you know, to what we're really looking for here.
Yep, and also maybe trying to be sure we're touching different demographics, people with kids, senior citizens, people of other groups in town, just to try and get as much input as possible from different like-minded people as to why they don't or do participate.
I think that's important. John?
Well, I think we tried that with representative town meeting, and of course, part of it was trying to determine which demographic would participate and which one would not. And the reason we moved it back to March is we thought that the people that were distracted by spring sports and being outdoors and wouldn't be able to, or didn't attend in May, would attend in March. But there was a flip side to this. The seniors that normally would attend in May, they were from Miami, in Florida. So the seniors were out of town when you saw a few of them at the annual town meeting. So it's really about trying to determine which demographic is affected by what, whether it's childcare, whether it's distraction, working, and just the different seasons.
And I think that goes to what Angela just said, is that we need to reach out to all of these different demographics, and also to people who don't attend, to determine, you know, how we can get the most participation as possible. We will never please everybody, you know, at once, and there'll always be conflicting concerns and priorities among people. But I think, you know, at this point, and you know, since the last time this was done, I think it's, you know, I think the demographics of Westford have changed since then, and I think it's important that we, you know, we do this again to see what we can do to, again, you know, get people to attend.
I think our ability to do surveys, and we can do a better job this time.
Yeah, I don't know if I've just been attending too many diversity, equity, inclusion committee meetings where they have 22 people, but the 3 people who were on this study from like 1996, who participated in this study on date of town meeting, 3 sounds so small in comparison. So I didn't know if we had a sense, do we have sort of like a general minimum standard number of folks?
Honestly, I mean, I don't know that we have I mean, we usually tend to, you know, somewhere between, you know, 7 and 9 is usually. The DEI was very different because so many people wanted to be on it, and you know, the board felt that everybody should be included on that committee. There have been other times, I mean, the Master Plan Implementation Committee was another example where anybody who wanted to be on the committee was on the committee. The initial master plan way back had, what, almost close to 40 people on it at one point in time. 38. Okay. So, you know, I think, you know, I really, I think it's important that we do some outreach so that, you know, we really do hit some folks and some groups that we've never hit before, so that we do some outreach, see who is interested, who applies, and then we can, as a board, determine, you know, how big, how small we want to make the committee. But I think that the first, we have to come up with a charge. I think, as Jody's sitting here, we have to come up with a charge, and I tried to get us no pride of our ownership, okay? I sort of sketched this out at about an hour before our meeting when I was thinking about this, just to try and get us to talk about something, and it was something to the effect of, for the committee to look at research and advise, recommend and advise the select board as to what actions the town can take to encourage attendance and participation at town meeting, including but not limited to consideration of the time and date of town meeting, what services the town might offer, what educational and outreach activities the town could undertake to encourage participation. And that was sort of what I came up with off the top of my head.
And earlier in that, when you said, somebody said about participation, is the goal to increase participation?
I said to encourage attendance, and we could put in and increase participation. Yep.
I mean, somebody that said, we're trying to, that's what we're
Yep.
trying to do.
No, I think that's good.
Sounds good.
Scott?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Just checking.
It would be great if you
I will-
could rip that off and give it to me. I couldn't write as fast.
I will do that, okay?
Okay, good.
Okay, good. Tom, Barry?
If I can just add.
Yes.
One personal thought. At the June 12th meeting, annual town meeting, I was involved with Article 21 on the drive-throughs. For about 4 to 6, maybe 5 or 6 weeks prior to the town meeting, the planning board, there were 4 of us on this subcommittee, ran a survey. The survey generated 1,695 responses. Out of those 1,695, 67.4%, or 1,142 people, were in favor of drive-throughs. So now we get to the town meeting after lunch. I forget how many people were there in the morning. It was like 250 or something. But after lunch, there were 167 people there. Of those 167 people, at least on Article 23, and I extrapolate that to also Article 21, approximately 88 people voted negative. So my point is that the demographics, as someone brought up before, are so critical in getting the types of people that voted in the survey all talked about, convenience, they have kids, they're elderly, the mobility impaired. So somehow or other, with almost 1,700 people responding and 1,142 people in favor, how do we get those people to town meeting? I don't know the answer to that, but it was just interesting that 88 people drove those last 3 articles. Approximately 88 people drove the last 3 articles. So it's critical to get, I remember the days, and I'm sure you folks do too, where we've had as many as 800 people at town meeting. In one of them, I remember at Abbott School, there were so many people in the auditorium that the police and fire moved some of the people into the lunchroom. And, 800 people, or if we could get 1,000 people.
That's the town moderator's goal right now, is to get 1,000 people to town meeting.
That would be ideal. So.
Yeah. Good point.
Anita?
To just reflect on that comment, if that's okay, so I think everyone knows how I felt about, or where I stood on that particular article, and I've processed this quite a bit of like how that played out, and I just wanted to, if the camera's on me right now, for those people who filled out the survey and said that they wanted drive-throughs but didn't go to town meeting isn't there to vote as a representative of your voice of that survey. You vote for yourself. So the people who attended were voting for what they believe in, and you need to go too to vote for what you believe in. And if that means that there's a service that's not available, if there's a barrier that's in the way, please volunteer for this task force that we're going to vote to put together, because we need you there to voice for yourself. You can't expect other people to do that for you. So I just needed to say that.
Well
Thanks.
said. Well said.
Well said. Thanks. All right, so I think with that, Jody, I'll send you the charge.
Yeah, you can just tear it off and give it to me if you want.
Wait, I do believe that our WestfordCAT.
I'm going to come out and make a rare comment, because this is actually something that I've looked into in the last couple of years.
Steve, though, you
This is
need
Steve
to-
Edwards, 3103 Princeton Way. A couple years ago, I was looking into ways to increase participation at town meeting, and one of the ideas was to vote using an app. And at the time, it was not something that there was really any sort of interest in at all. But I kind of pursued, like, in theory, how would this work? And it turns out there's actually a Massachusetts state law that says you have to be physically present at town meeting to vote. So that would actually probably need to be changed before we could implement any sort of remote participation. So that was kind of where I left off on it. I think the public opinion towards remote participation has kind of shifted in the last year or two, and maybe there would be the political willpower to pull it off now. I haven't really done that exploration, but that was the kind of where I went with it and what I found.
Thank you.
I think the problem with something like that is how do you verify who is actually a registered voter? And if you remember when I brought the clickers to that town meeting, there was a lot of distrust even in handing them out and being in the room with hackers and things. But anyway, it's fascinating what we do.
It is.
So.
Angela?
I don't want to belabor all this, but we really need to look at technology, whether we can do remote or not. There's other technology that'll make it easier for people who are there to participate as well, and I think that may be one of the things that we need to do is figure out how people can use their phones or their tablets or the devices while they're at town meeting, which makes it easier for them to participate, or how we can communicate with people before and after town meeting electronically so that they understand what's going on before it happens and what has happened after it's happened. All of that stuff needs to be incorporated, I think, to a greater extent in our whole town meeting attitude, including clickers.
All right, so I'll get you the chart. Well, no, because it's on the back of something else I wrote on, so I can't do that. Okay. That's all right. And why don't we start advertising? And let's make sure. Let's figure out a way to hit groups that we don't usually hit as well. I know you're our representative to DEI, so I'm not sure when they're meeting next, but
Tomorrow.
excellent. Could you bring it up to DEI so we can get their input, maybe connect with Jennifer at the senior center so that we can get input from the senior citizens in town. And then any other ideas folks have, to relay to Jody in terms of how we might get the word out to as wide a swath of people as possible.
And you factor in the league letter.
And I have the league letter, yes. Yeah.
They were on the representative town meeting committee.
All right. So our next item is a request from the Town and School Safety Task Force to appoint Police Chief Mark Chambers to the Town and School Safety Task Force as a full member for a term expiring on June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion to appoint?
So moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor? Scott?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Anita? Aye. Aye. And now we have a...
Just to be clear, so, we always have to have the police chief on that committee, so this reflects the fact that Mark is on the chief and he'll be taking Tom's, spot.
Right. Thank you. We have a request from the Communications Advisory Committee to appoint Robert Rafferty as a full member for a term expiring on June 30th, 2022. Is there a motion to appoint?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anita?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we have a request from the Cultural Council to appoint Prem Viswanathan as a full member for a term expiring on June 30th, 2024. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Anita?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye. And we have a request from the Economic Development Committee to appoint Cheryl Serpy as a full member for a term expiring on June 30th, 2024. Is there a motion to appoint?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor? John?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Anita? Aye. Aye. And to all of those folks who just volunteered, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We have a request to appoint election officers as listed in our packets tonight for terms to expire on July 31st, 2022. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor? John?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. And finally, we have a request to approve 2021 annual reappointments for committee and board members as listed in the meeting packet tonight. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Scott?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. All right, board reports and updates. Do we have any? I don't see any. Minutes for approval. We have minutes for our July 13th, 2021 regular session for release. Is there a motion to approve and release?
So moved.
Second.
Second? All those in favor? Scott?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Aye. And then we have a motion for approval of executive session minutes of July 13th, 2021, but not for release. Is there a motion to approve but not release?
So moved.
A second? Second. All those in favor? Scott?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Anita? Aye. Town managers report. You're up, Jody.
Okay, so I wanted to announce that we received a grant from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, Department of Conservation and Recreation for the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail drainage in the amount of $29,810. We also received a... Sure, well, I'm not in charge.
Yes.
Emily Teller, 9 Texas Road. The Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail will be contributing toward the work that this is going to be covering, this grant at Greenwood Road.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so then we also got a grant from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, the same agency, for the O'Brien Farm Public Footbridge under a 2021 Mass Trails Grant Program in the amount of $27,970.50. Contracts to approve Maya for general lines of insurance for fiscal year '22 in the amount of $939,586. Woodard and Curran for our LSP for perchlorate mitigation, the amount of $46,500. MAPC for services related to the operation at the Upper Merrimack Valley Medical Reserve Corps in the amount of $47,018. The Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for a Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Action Grant in the amount of $79,200. Purchase orders, Presidio for VoIP systems upgrade in the amount of $193,931.93. Coastal medical billing for ambulance medical billing in the amount of $32,000. Boundtree Medical for medical supplies for the fire department in the amount of $30,000. Merrimack Valley Emergency Physicians, Inc. for medical direction services in the amount of $18,000. Cybercom Communication Solutions for a fiscal year '22 radio systems agreement in the amount of $19,263. And Gibson Roofs for roof replacement at Camp, how do you say that? Silo? Lodge at Stony Brook Conservation Area in the amount of $17,730.
Any questions about any of those? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? John?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, is there a motion to waive reading of correspondence?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor? John?
Aye.
Anita?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Good enough. Scott, thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, too.
Bye, Scott.
Bye, Scott.